The heartbreak was heavy, but the words of Allah were heavier. Enough to ground me, enough to heal me, enough to remind me that my Rab was never unaware of my tears. I didn't know what to do next. Do I expose him publicly? Do I remain silent and heal in private? I prayed Salatul Istikhara with a broken heart. I begged Allah, Ya Rab, guide me to what's right. I don't want revenge. I want protection. And then, Allah answered. 2 days later, a sister I barely knew messaged me. We had met once at a lecture. She wrote, Assalamu alaikum, I heard something and I'm not sure if I should tell you, but I feel I have to. I saw your name mentioned by someone, it was him. My heart dropped. She continued. He was trying to talk to another sister, using your name to validate himself. Saying, I've already married a righteous sister from a good family. And even sent her your picture. I felt like throwing up. Not only was my trust broken, now my modesty, my dignity, was being used like currency. But that message was proof. Allah was showing me more than I asked to see. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about injustice. And Allah is Al-Adl the Just. I thanked her. And that night, I made a decision. I would report him to the scholars in our local masjid. Not out of spite but out of amana. I couldn't stay quiet if other sisters were still in danger. And when I submitted the evidence, something happened I didn't expect. The Imam called me personally. He said, My daughter, you are the fourth sister who came to me about this man. But your proof is the strongest. My breath caught. He added, Don't worry. We will handle this. But I want you to know, you are brave. You are not broken. You are a believer. And Allah does not waste the pain of His righteous slaves. I broke down in tears again, but this time out of gratitude. I saw how Allah had been with me all along, through the stranger who spoke the truth. Through the sister who messaged me. Through the Imam who stood up for me. And I realized something. Even when people lie in the name of Allah, Allah Himself sends the truth to defend you. This was no longer just my pain, this was my story of survival. And I would not hide it anymore. Have you ever seen Allah send you help in a moment you were lost? Tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe now and don't miss part 7. They tried to silence me. But Allah gave me a voice. After the Imam spoke to me, I felt a new kind of strength rising inside me. Not loud, not angry, but calm. Certain. Firm. I wasn't the broken girl anymore. I was a witness to a lie, and a voice for the truth. But when word got out that I had reported him, the backlash came like a storm. First, from his friends. Saying I was bitter. That I was jealous. That I was making up stories because the marriage didn't work out. I laughed not because it was funny. But because it was familiar. How often do women get silenced like this? How often does the victim become the villain? One even messaged me. Fear Allah, sister. You're ruining a brother's life. I replied only with, I feared Allah the day I chose to speak up. Then his family tried. Yes, the same family that refused to acknowledge the so-called marriage before. Now they begged me to let it go. To forgive and forget. To not make it a big deal. They said, You're ruining your own chances at marriage by dragging this on. No man will want to marry a woman with a loud past. I smiled. Because they didn't know that the only approval I wanted now was Allah's. I told them, if speaking the truth makes me unwanted in people's eyes, but honored in Allah's sight, I am content. They didn't respond again. But that night, I cried in sujud. Not out of weakness but out of gratitude. Because I realized, Allah didn't just save me from a liar, He saved me from a future of fake love, fake deen, and fake peace. I remembered the ayah. And whosoever fears Allah, He will make a way out for them. Surah At-Talaq chapter 65 verse 2. Allah was making a way out for me. A clean break. A clean heart. A clean start. The masjid announced that he was under investigation. The other sisters came forward. He couldn't hide any more. And as for me, I found my voice. A voice that no longer whispered in pain, but recited with confidence, Allah is enough for me. Have you ever been falsely blamed or silenced when you were right? Tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe and stay with me for part 8. I thought no one would believe me. Until one sister spoke. The weight of truth is heavy, especially when you're the only one carrying it. I stood alone, with trembling hands but a firm heart, wondering if anyone else saw what I saw, felt what I felt, was used the way I was. Because that's the thing about people like him. They don't just hurt one, they leave trails of pain behind them, thinking no one will ever connect the dots. Days passed. The masjid remained quiet on the matter. The community whispered. Some believed me, some didn't know what to believe, and some just stayed silent, afraid of the drama. I was starting to feel invisible again. Until she came. A sister I barely knew. Soft-spoken. Face pale with memories she hadn't shared. After a lecture at the masjid, she pulled me aside and said, I heard your story. I kept quiet before, but you gave me the courage to speak. I stared at her. She looked like someone still healing. Someone who had buried a chapter she never wanted reopened. She told me her story, a mirror of mine. Same lies. Same manipulation. Same fake nikah. He had promised her marriage, but backed out right after intimacy, claiming it was never that serious. My heart broke all over again. Not just for me anymore, but for us. Because now, I wasn't alone. We weren't alone. She offered to testify. To give her account to the Imam. To help expose him, even if it meant reopening wounds. I hugged her. We both cried. Sisters, strangers by name, but sisters in struggle, in sorrow, and now in truth. That night I made the longest sujud of my life. Not in complaint. But in shukr. Ya Allah, you heard me. You sent someone. You honored the truth. And I remembered the words of the Prophet, peace be upon him. Help your brother, whether he is an oppressor or oppressed. The Sahaba asked, we understand helping the oppressed, but how do we help the oppressor? The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, by stopping him from oppression. Bukhari. Now, it was no longer just about me. It was about all the sisters he had deceived, and all the ones he might hurt next. This had to end. And it would. Have you ever found strength through someone else's courage? Comment where you're watching from. Subscribe and stay close for part 9. The masjid called a meeting. And he wasn't ready. Truth has a way of shaking walls that were built on lies. After that sister came forward, the Imam agreed it was no longer a matter to stay silent about. It had grown beyond a he said, she said. There were now multiple voices, multiple wounds, and a pattern no one could ignore anymore. A community meeting was called. Quietly but seriously. No loud announcements. Just private messages to those involved, leaders, and a few respected elders. When I walked into the masjid that day, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a witness. The sister who spoke out with me sat beside me. Her hands were shaking. Mine were cold. But our eyes were strong. And then, he walked in. Confident. Calm. Wearing his best thobe. Greeting people with a smile, as if nothing was wrong. I watched him. I watched how charm came easy to him. How he sat with folded arms, like he was being disturbed from something important. When the Imam began, his voice was clear but heavy with sadness. This is not about scandal. He said. This is about protection. If there are men among us deceiving sisters in the name of Islam, using religion to get what they want and abandoning their duty, then we must stop them. This is not the Sunnah. This is oppression. The room fell silent. Then I was asked to speak. My hands trembled slightly, but my heart was steady. I told everything. The promises, the texts, the fake nikah with no wali, no witnesses, the abandonment. I didn't cry. Not this time. Then the other sister stood. Her voice cracked, but her words were like thunder. He told me the same things. And when I asked for a proper marriage, he blocked me. He said I was too emotional. And now he's pretending like he doesn't even know me. The room shifted. You could feel it. Some men lowered their heads. Some women wiped tears. And he laughed. A quiet, sarcastic chuckle. Then said, Subhanallah. This is just character assassination. You know how women can be emotional. That was his mistake. Because the Imam cut him off. Fear Allah. You think this is a joke? 2 Muslim sisters are standing before the Ummah with pain in their hearts, and you mock them. Wallahi, if even a part of this is true, then it is you who should be crying before Allah. His face went pale. He didn't expect this. He expected the usual deflection, dismissal, doubt. But this time, the truth had backup. And it shook the room. That night, I didn't sleep. I just kept whispering. Our Lord, do not make us a trial for the wrongdoers. Quran chapter 10 verse 85. Because this wasn't just about him anymore. This was about every sister who stays silent, thinking no one will believe her. But Allah sees. And now, others were beginning to see too. Would you have spoken up in my place? Or stayed silent? Share in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe for part 10, he got exposed. But what came next shook me to my core. After the community meeting, things started to spread. Quiet whispers turned into bold conversations. The mask he had worn for so long was cracking. The sisters' WhatsApp groups began sharing warnings. Beware of him. He uses religion to manipulate. He pretends to be pious, but he's a deceiver. But what shook me the most was just the whispers. It was the messages I started receiving. 1, 2, 5 different sisters messaged me privately. Each one had a story. Each one had pain. Each one thought she was the only one until now. One sister said he told her he was divorced. But he never was. Another said he promised her a nikah, but after a private contract that she signed out of ignorance, he disappeared. Yet another shared how he used temporary marriage to justify what he did, then tossed her aside. I felt sick. How many more were there? How many vulnerable women had he targeted? Women seeking halal love. Women seeking to please Allah. Women who thought they'd finally found a man of deen. And then, I got a message that made me freeze. His real wife. Yes, he had a wife. A real, legitimate, publicly known wife. She said, I don't know what's going on. But people are calling my husband a monster. I need to talk to you. Please. Sister to sister. My heart was pounding. I didn't want to cause more destruction. But this woman, this innocent woman, had been in the dark all this time. We agreed to meet. She looked exhausted. Not from lack of sleep, but from years of emotional confusion. She had always suspected something. Late-night calls. Random trips to different cities under the excuse of dawah. But she never had proof. Until now. I showed her the messages. The screenshots. The Nikah texts. The voice notes. She cried. I gave him my life. I thought I was helping a man who loved Allah, but I was living with a liar. And then she said something I'll never forget. You think he just lied to you in the name of marriage? Sister, he lied to all of us in the name of Islam. That sentence pierced my soul. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was religious abuse, using the deen as a disguise. Wearing a beard and quoting hadiths, while breaking the very foundation of trust and justice. She quietly got up, wiped her tears, and said, "I'm not just going to cry anymore. I'm going to speak. For every sister he hurt. And for every daughter we must protect." That was the moment I realized. This story wasn't about me anymore. It was bigger. It was about the daughters of this ummah. The innocent hearts that needed protection. The voices that had been silenced. And now, we were ready to speak for them, because Allah is Al-Adl. The most just. And He never sleeps. What would you do if his real wife reached out to you? Tell me in the comments and mention your country. Subscribe now for part 11. She confronted him in public. And the masjid went silent. We agreed not to remain silent anymore. Not out of revenge. But for the sake of truth. His real wife, Karim, was stronger than I expected. She wasn't loud. She wasn't dramatic. But her calm courage was terrifying. She chose Jumu'ah day. A day when the masjid was full. When he'd be in his favorite position, standing tall, surrounded by brothers, after delivering a reminder. She sat at the back of the women's section, quiet, patient, waiting. After the khutbah ended, he stood with pride, smiling at the men who gathered around him. He thought today was just another day of fooling people with his charm and Quranic quotes. Then she walked forward toward the Imam's office, where he was headed. And I followed. "Salam alaikum," she said as she stepped into the room. He turned, surprised. "Karima, what are you doing here?" But before he could finish, she calmly laid a brown envelope on the table. Inside, screenshots, voice recordings, and names. Of women. Of stories. Of contracts. He froze. He tried to laugh. "You've misunderstood, these women are just seeking help." She raised her hand. "Don't lie. Not here. Not in the house of Allah." The Imam, also present, looked confused. "What's going on?" he asked. She replied, "I came here to protect my sisters. And my deen. I will not let this man use the name of Islam to hide his crimes." And then, she did the unexpected. She stepped back, looked him straight in the eye and said, "I forgive you for the pain you caused me. But I will never stay silent and let you harm another woman. This is between you and Allah now." The Imam's expression changed. He asked him to step out, and I saw a flicker of fear in his eyes. The community began whispering. People who once praised him now avoided his gaze. And still, he denied everything. But Allah's justice doesn't need public approval. It only needs time. And sometimes, a silent masjid is louder than 1,000 shouts. Because that day, Allah exposed him in his own house. That night, Karima messaged me. "My heart hurts, but it also feels light. I did what I had to do. Now, I leave the rest to Allah." And I felt something rise within me. Not anger but peace. Because the same place where he tried to break us was where Allah raised our voices. If you were in her shoes, would you have confronted him? Or stayed silent? Comment your answer and where you're watching from. Subscribe now for part 12. He went online and tried to ruin my name. You'd think after being exposed in the masjid, he'd feel remorse. You'd think a man cornered by truth would reflect. But no, Shane was not done with him. And neither was his ego. Within 2 days, a new video appeared online. His face, calm, confident. His voice, soft, like always. The title: beware of the women plotting to destroy Muslim brothers. It was him. Using his platform, his followers, his smooth words to twist the truth. Some sisters, he said, pretend to seek marriage, just to trap and expose innocent men of knowledge. May Allah protect us from such fitna. And I sat there staring at the screen. Frozen. He never mentioned our names. But everyone knew. The comments poured in. May Allah protect this sheikh. These feminist sisters are destroying Islam. Clout chasers in Nikah. May Allah humiliate them. I didn't even cry. Not yet. I just felt like someone had lit a fire inside me. Quiet but burning. Then my phone rang. Karima. She had seen it too. But her voice was steady. Let them talk, she said. We are not here for popularity. We are not here to win online. We are here to stand before Allah with clean hearts. She was right. But the pain. It was real. My inbox filled with hate. Fake accounts began sharing my old photos, lying that I seduced him. That I was mentally unstable. That I wanted revenge because he refused me. And worst of all, some people believed him. That's the part that hurt the most. Not the lies, but the silence of those who knew the truth. And still chose to scroll past it. But Allah saw. And that was enough. So we did the unthinkable. We wrote a joint statement, Karima and I. We didn't defend ourselves. We just told the truth. And we ended it with, we ask Allah to expose falsehood, purify hearts, and protect the honor of sincere Muslim women. The day it was posted, our DMs exploded. Not with hate, but with stories. So many sisters, from different countries, different ages, messaged us. He did the same to me. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for speaking up. And that's when we realized. This was never just our story. It was a cycle. And Allah chose us to break it. Not with noise. Not with revenge. But with truth, Sabr, and the pen. Because the same internet he used to shame us, was now a tool Allah used to honor us. And we weren't done. This wasn't just a fight for justice anymore. It was a mission to protect others from falling into the same trap. Have you ever been blamed for simply telling the truth? Comment where you're watching from. May Allah honor all those who are slandered unjustly. Subscribe and stay with us for part 13. A stranger messaged me with a secret that changed everything.